Hello, I'm Malcolm Haslett. It's Christmas holiday planning time. Where can we go? What can we do? As special guest Gina Norman will answer that and more next on OurTime. Hello and welcome to OurTime. Great to have your company once again. You know, I guess most people think about these days having a holiday somewhere, and certainly in the past probably 20 years, overseas travel has been so easy for so many people. But this year, of course, that's not the case. And Gina Norman is joining us from RACB Travel. She's the General Manager and she's here. And she's going to answer a whole lot of questions about what we can do to travel. Welcome to OurTime, Gina.
Thanks very
Gina,
much.
before we talk about that though, how on earth did you become a General Manager of a travel department in a car company or a motor what's the proper term for RAA?
Auto club?
Auto club.
Or a membership organisation.
That as well.
Yeah.
I've been a member for a long time, but I've never used the travel service.
Well, it's time you started. I got into travel really by chance. So I went to school, I went through university, I did a science degree, nothing related to travel. I then came out of it, I travelled the world with a couple of girlfriends and went around Europe and backpacked, and then came back via America and got back to Australia and was really quite lost as to what to do. And my mum saw an ad in the paper back when jobs were in the paper for a travel agent. And I applied for that and said, I'll go and do this travel agent gig until I decide what I really want to do with my life. And that's more than 20 years ago that I did that.
You're still doing that with your life.
And I'm still in that travel game. And
What
I love
is
it.
it, do you think? Is it seeing different places, cultures, landscapes? I suppose it's different for everybody really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think it is seeing those yourself, and it's also seeing the joy that it brings other people. So a lot about when I started as a travel agent was being able to share my own experiences with other people, but also then see their experiences, and they would come back and they'd tell you how amazing it was and all their special events that they sort of had overseas. They were able to share it with me. And I think it engages you more and more. And for every place you travel to, there's 10 more that you learn about that you want to go to.
Oh, that's true. Very true. Recently I went overseas and I had no idea that this castle existed, and it made me want to go back. Apart from the fact that I was robbed while I was there. But, you know, that's not going to happen the same in Australia, is it, if we travel so much in our own backyard?
No, well, people see Australia...
We don't hear it in Australia.
Yes.
We don't hear that happening.
No, and people feel it's very safe to travel in Australia. They know that there's no language barriers, they can easily ask for directions, they can easily find places, and it doesn't take too long to get there. So if there's any sort of mobility issues, it's easy to get around.
There's no 24-hour flight to start
no.
with. So here in South Australia, obviously, we have lots of choice. There are places like the Flinders Ranges, for example. What would you recommend if you were going to the Flinders Ranges, what would you recommend that you took with you? Obviously a car.
Yes, so taking a car, and make sure that you have serviced your car recently, that you've had your tyres checked, and that everything's roadworthy before you do a road trip, because it's a good 6 hours to get to Flinders Ranges.
Are there plenty of places to stay, or do you need...
Plenty of places to stay.
Right, you don't necessarily need to take a caravan.
No, you can take a caravan. So there's the opportunity, so up at Wilpena Pound Resort, you can either camp, you can caravan, or you can stay in their accommodation, and you can use all the facilities throughout.
Right.
Another place that we've found really popular this year is Rawnsley Park Station.
Well, let's have a look, because we've got some footage of that area, and perhaps we'll see the things you're about to talk about. I love going into our own backyard, because so often we sort of forget that it's there, and people come from all over the world to experience what we've got, the colour, the vastness, the flora, the fauna, the fact that you're not crowded like you are in most major capital cities, because we tend to go to capital cities a lot in the rest of the world.
Yes, and we tend to go for shorter breaks in South Australia than has happened this year. We're seeing people go for longer breaks.
Is this glamping?
Yes, it is. So that's their car.
Can't believe I knew that
Safari
term.
Park, yep. So you can see the beautiful glamping tents. You don't have to take anything with you. It's all set up for you rather than having to take all your own camping equipment.
And clearly there are local guides who know the area to really explain what all the things are that we don't necessarily have here.
Yes.
Or here as in a city.
Yeah, and you can spend longer exploring. So people were taking holidays that they might have spent 2 to 3 days only on an essay break, whereas now to take their full holiday, which might be a week or 2 holiday, they can then go further in South Australia. They can explore the different areas that take a bit longer to get to.
Sort of in a way, if we rush past our own backyard too quickly, often we don't really get a chance to take in, as you said, like that wattle in that last shot, absolutely beautiful. And the other wildflowers that were there, beautiful, but we don't necessarily grow those in our backyard garden either.
No.
So if you're into that, fantastic. But the scenery there, you know, it is sort of a spine of Australia, isn't it?
It's beautiful. So it's outback, true outback scenery that you can explore, that you can experience, along with all the dust and the flies and everything else that make it authentic. But you can experience what it is to be out back and have the space and see the stars where there's no lights around.
I was going to say, that's probably, for me, I was a hills boy, so there weren't a lot of lights up in the hills, and I'd forgotten how beautiful that can be. Once I moved to the city, you'd sort of take life for granted, but then suddenly you go up into the hills or somewhere where you don't have street lights and look up, and this vastness that's just mind-boggling, really.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You can understand why people in the past were totally blown away with believing that something else was up there rather than space, sort of thing, because it is magic.
It is magical, absolutely.
But you only see that if you're in a place like Wilpena Pound or...
Yes. So somewhere where you're in the outback, you actually get to experience the entire cross-section of the Milky Way. So you're looking into a cross-section of it and you see that band of stars that's really strong.
I love all that. So what do we really need to know, though, before we go to a place like that? Is it in road maps, or are we going to use our phone to know where to go? How do we find the information?
So with the information, RAA have strip maps that you can use that we've just re-released.
Now, what's a strip map?
So a strip map, lots of people who might be watching would know about the old strip maps that you went into RAA and it was a fold-out map that was end-to-end.
Oh, okay.
And you could then
you ended up with this
that.
enormous...
Yes.
Okay.
And it was the length of the trip. So you just sort of move page to page, end to end,
right.
And it would be the next section of the trip, and it would show places to stop along the way and things to do along the way. And we've just re-released a number of those because we knew that people would really re-engage with road trips. One from a COVID-safe perspective, that they like the fact that they're in their own car with their own family. They also want to explore their own backyard, but if you only do it with a GPS, you miss the trip along the way.
I understand what you mean, yes.
And
that
so
really just tells you where the next place is.
Yes.
Well, it might tell you where you can stay, but it doesn't tell you all the other bits.
Yes. So it's learning all the other bits along the way and finding out the information of what would be a great place to stop for lunch and what would be a great place.
Yes, exactly. Yes. But talking about the COVID thing and being with your own family or familial people, that's a big bonus at the moment, obviously. Although we've been lucky here in South Australia, I feel very sorry for the people in Victoria, but I guess this is going to sort of free up as more time goes on with there. But in Victoria, the similar organisation to yours is called?
So the RACB?
Right.
Yes. Yeah, so the Auto Club of Victoria is the RACB, so they can help with directions, they can help with understanding where to go and how to get there.
So it's really the same. It's an automobile association right around the country.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so do I need to pack anything particular in the car as well as the map? I know this is sort of obvious stuff like water and food, perhaps.
Yes, water, food.
But how essential is that really if there are stops along the way? Or, like in the past when I was a kid doing similar things with the family, there weren't the road stops, there weren't the road houses. you'd go for miles before you got to a petrol station. Notice I said miles, not kilometres, because it's that long ago.
Yeah, so over time, there's far more facilities. It's much easier to find them. Something that's great to do at the moment is actually go with a bit less and buy it along the way. So you're supporting regional towns all the way through.
Well, of course, that's what we're being told all the time. Support local businesses.
Yeah, support
get the
local
economy
businesses.
moving.
Yep, absolutely.
Of course, that's the whole point, though, of travelling within our own backyard, isn't it? It's just to keep the whole economy moving.
Yes, and I mean, I think there's a massive well-being element for people to be able to travel still, and it aids in the well-being of the regional towns, it aids in the well-being of our own economy. So there's a lot of benefits for everyone involved. And we saw as soon as the lockdown was easing just for South Australia before the state borders started to open up, the instant people were allowed to do something, they been absolutely dying to do something. And all they wanted to know is, where can I go? Just tell me where I can go, where can I book, so they could actually get on their journey.
I understand. Well, we're going to go to a break right now. We'll see you in a tick. Welcome back to Our Time and to our special guest, Gina Norman, from the RAA Travel Centre?
Yes, or travel department, yes.
The travel department? I like the word centre because we're in the centre of everything here. We were just talking in the break about maps, and our very able-bodied lady on our camera there was just asking about, gee, I'd love to see a map like that, because she's so used to using GPS that she's probably never been out and about to see a map or to use a map. And our studio manager here said the best thing about it is to be able to put the map on the bonnet and, oh yes, we want to go there and we want to go there. Have we lost something with using our phones that probably won't work if we go too far away from home?
Possibly, because if you go too far from home and your coverage for your mobile isn't as strong as you want it to be, then the risk is you don't have any maps, you don't have any GPS guidance when you're out there, whereas that never happens with a map. A map will always give you where the next town is, and it will tell you how far away.
Yes, but the biggest problem is, how do you fold it back up again to make it fit?
Oh, well, that's the advantage with a strip map. It's just end to end. So it just folds back up into a single
like
piece,
a concertina.
Like a concertina, and you can just
like a piano accordion.
Keep following it. Once you get to the end, flip it over.
Go to the next one.
Show the kids.
I love it. Now, we've got some footage of the Clare Valley, but like the Clare Valley, just recently I was up in the other one, the Barossa Valley.
Yes.
And I was amazed at, first of all, the highways to get there. It was so much easier. In my little smart car, though, zooming along at 120 or 110, whatever it is, was a bit much for my little bus, but just seeing the world whiz by, you really sort of throw off all the constraints of living within a city area, don't you?
Yes, and it's very close to be able to get there. That you can go for a day, you can go for a weekend, you can go for a week, and there's enough to do in all of those that you'll always find something new to experience.
Absolutely, and that really surprised me. A friend of mine who lives up there said, come on, let's go to some of the wineries. I'd never been inside a winery before, and I'd never really experienced how vast they are and the size of the barrels. And let's look at the Clare Valley, because... Clare Valley? Yes, Clare Valley, because that's another completely different look at this same thing. Look at this. Now, those flowers are...
Canola?
Exactly. I wish I'd thought of that. And you can do bus tours as well, of course.
You can.
So you don't have to start from Adelaide in a bus tour, or could you pick up a bus tour up there?
You can do both. Lots of people will start it from here because they might like a wine tasting or two along the way. And
I can see that, yes. They've got a lot of glasses lined up there for a lot of tasting.
Yes. So it takes away the need for driving, keeps people safe. It's also really lovely to do with friends. And wineries have very much changed over the last 5 years with having far more experiences rather than just your cellar door, which was sort of a standard tasting, and then you...
But they will show you around.
Yes, they'll...
And things like this, the local churches and things, I love seeing these old churches. To think of the literally thousands of people that have been through there and almost left their ambience behind, you know?
Yeah, beautiful history.
It is beautiful history, and it's a history we know very little about because it's such a short history.
What's a
We haven't been here that long.
Yeah, short history for us.
Yes.
Well, it's long for us because it's seemingly our time that we've been here, but it's compared to the rest of the world,
Exactly.
It's a really short history.
And there's some beautiful food and some lovely venues to go to.
Absolutely, and the food experience, there's so many degustation experiences now that you can have. There's wine flight
I might have to go home now and
experiences.
have something to eat, I think, after all of that.
Yes, it's very tempting and it's always very good.
And also there are these rather grandiose old homes with, again, that touch of, I suppose, old England that came here and settled this state, which a lot of people don't realise that a lot of these outer regions were settled by so-called landed gentry. Of course, they stole the land in the first place. However, they have left a history that's worth investigating.
Absolutely, yes. It's certainly a history that's worth going out to see and worth learning about. And there's lots of individual stories that are amazing of how people came and made their money or built a beautiful home from a loved one,
yes,
for a loved one.
But
and
from nothing.
Yes.
That's what I find extraordinary. So where would you go?
Where would I go to?
Yeah, where would you like to go? What haven't you seen, or working in travel, have you seen everything?
I haven't seen everything because for every place I go, I always find 10 new ones to go, and there are new experiences coming out all the time at the moment. From a Barossa perspective, Seppeltsfield, the winery, you can do a historic heritage tour, and that's amazing, and it's very inexpensive. It gives you a history of the families that have gone through, but all the transformation of Seppeltsfield as well over the history,
enormous.
but in
It's
the last
enormous.
5 years.
Yeah, but it's an enormous area too. I was quite surprised. I didn't also realise that the Barossa's so sort of hilly and up and downy, and then they've taken advantage of every sort of nook and cranny and water source. It's fascinating when you overview it, because up there's some great hills that you can literally look over everything. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Why
beautiful.
go to France?
And different wines. So you'll see a lean towards a red in the Barossa because of the lay of the land, and then whereas in the Clare Valley you'll see the lean towards the whites, especially Riesling, which is very good from the Clare Valley region.
Right. Now there's other places to go that I guess are closer or further that have animals if you're a great animal lover. So where would we find the animals? Because we've got a good clip of some great animals.
So Monarto as a safari park is absolutely beautiful, and they keep expanding, they keep coming up with new experiences, and the Lions 360 experience is something that people absolutely relish, with the lions able to climb on the cage over
yes,
the
we can
top.
see that in the clip.
Yeah, so that one's very popular and amazing. And just seeing them out in a really large environment. So
this is the enclosure, isn't it?
That's it. That's the lions and the 360 experience, and people have the opportunity to feed the lions in
Not quite
very
like the
safe
cat I've got
environment.
at home, really, but he does that. I love the riverboat. Obviously making herbs here, learning about the foods that we've got.
Yeah, the foods, and then the wine tasting, so the different wine flights, and then you have the big spirit explosion, so the gin
gin
distilleries.
has become a real thing,
Absolutely.
hasn't it?
So gin's quite an easy spirit to make.
look
So it's
at the
allowed
segues.
Yes. So now that's a Segway tour that you can do.
What a great idea.
A bit of sandboarding.
Yes. See, we don't really know about a lot of these things. I don't. Well, that looked like it was on the
barbecue
Popeye.
boys. So these are barbecue boys, which you can actually do an experience with a group, and you get a platter to barbecue for yourself
And
on the Torrens.
that last footage would have been up at Murray Bridge at the speed track.
Tailem Bend.
Tailem Bend,
Yes,
I should
yeah.
say, yeah.
Yeah.
A bit further on.
Close.
My geography isn't great anymore. So, your message to people watching this program is?
Get out and explore your own backyard. It's absolutely beautiful, and you can caravan, you can camp, you can have beautiful resort-style accommodation. You can do a guided tour where you have to do nothing for yourself and it's all taken care of. You can do a family trip with a strip map that you explore. And a big recommendation is to engage the help of an ATAS accredited travel agent.
Right, now that's probably the next and very important thing to talk about, because it's very easy to miss so much, and knowing somebody who's been there or is familiar with the area can give you all those highlights if you've got a short time or slightly longer, or a really long one that will take in everything.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're experts, so you go to lots of different expert advisors, like you would go to a doctor if you needed health advice, or a chemist for health advice.
Sure.
So going to a travel advisor actually helps you find out the information far more quickly. It helps you find out valid and up-to-date information, especially when there's been so many challenges with COVID. You really want valuable information and flexible booking conditions, because if there's another outbreak...
That's important, yes.
And I think people really need to be protected. We know a lot of people have had lots of cancellations, and if they booked with lots of online providers, they're still chasing these refunds from having to cancel their bookings this year.
So that's a valid point, though. In fact, we'll talk about that when we come back, because I'm really interested to know sort of if we can postpone, shift, or get your money back. In a minute, we'll be back again. We'll talk about that. Welcome back to Our Time. Our special guest is Gina Norman from RAA Travel. And we talk about stuff in the commercial breaks, you see, because we don't watch the commercials. And Andre, who is over there, our studio manager, was just saying last week he was up in, where was it, Wilpena Pound? 38
degrees on the Saturday.
38 degrees, and you were mountain biking. Never even thought about that.
So there's amazing things you can do up at Wilpena Pound.
Yes. I never even thought about that. And just recently, people going up for ballooning, if the weather permits.
Yes.
Just so many things to do in our own backyard, again, which we forget. The best way to engage with any, I guess, travel agent, or in fact your company, is how? Is it a phone call? Is it to search the internet for a while? Is it to try and plan something out? Or do you say, I've got 2 weeks, I want to go in that direction, what can I see? Or all of the above?
Probably all of the above. So you can start your research online if that's the channel that you prefer. You can start your research with a phone call, or you can go in and visit stores. Lots of stores, just check, because some of them aren't open anymore, of some of the travel advisors that were there. So just make sure that you check who you want to go with.
So is it best to check that online or make a phone call? What would you recommend?
It's very easy to make a phone call, and then you can find out what's the closest store to you that works for you to then possibly go and visit, or you can do the whole thing by phone. And there's also the opportunity to book online if you're happy with booking online.
Do you think people are bewildered with the choice because there literally is so much?
Absolutely.
Because we haven't talked about the ocean side of the country either. And clearly there's a lot of beaches to go to and places to go. I was watching telly the other night and I noticed they were saying, you know, if you want to go to the beach, and if you haven't done it already, you probably won't get a chance because everything is booked out.
Yeah, well, there's still lots of options for availability, because there's so many individual bespoke properties and houses, as well as hotels and caravan parks and that. And if you go to a travel advisor, they're able to see
They know about those
the information
things.
instantly of what's
Right.
available for you.
They know what to look for.
Rather than having to do it yourself, you can spend hours and hours trawling through information on the internet and never find what you're after.
And so basically you would pay for this to happen up front, like I want to book this, and this, and the travel agent says, well, that's X amount of dollars, off you go?
Yeah, so most of them you will pay before you go, but there's very flexible booking conditions for most things at the moment. So some of them you could pay off like a lay-by, you can pay it off over time.
Oh, okay, that's a good idea.
And pay a deposit and then pay it off over time and just finalise your payment before you go. Some of them you don't have to pay till just before you leave, and then if there is anything wrong, you can fix it.
I'm ready to go, Gina. Thank you so much for all that information. I'm ready to go. Hope you are too, but not just yet. We haven't finished. But now we have. See you next time. Keep yourself nice till then, and we'll see you next time on Our Time. Gina, thank you so much.
Thank you.